Welcome. Today, we're going to unpack a really fascinating and honestly kind of counterintuitive idea, the hidden power of being useless. Yeah, you heard that right. We're going to dig into two ancient parables that seriously challenge our whole concept of what value even is. Okay, so let's just dive right in. Our journey here begins not with some famous philosopher or a powerful king, but with a simple businessman from the ancient state of Song. And this guy, well, he had what he thought was a brilliant idea. So this merchant's plan seems pretty straightforward, right? He's going to travel to the neighboring state of Yu and sell these traditional ceremonial hats. They're called zongfu. A simple business trip. What could possibly go wrong? And here is where it all falls apart. You see, back home in Song, these hats were a big deal. Part of the culture, a part of daily life. They were incredibly useful. But in Yu, it was a totally different story. The people there kept their hair short, they had tattoos. A hat served absolutely no purpose. It was completely and utterly pointless. So what happens to the merchant? Does he go bankrupt? Does he figure out some clever new marketing scheme? We have no idea. And that's the whole point. The story just leaves him there, in Yu, with a product that has been totally stripped of its purpose. He's left to confront this really profound state of just uselessness. Now, you might think this is just a simple business lesson, right? Know your market. But it's way, way deeper than that. This story is actually a setup for a much bigger philosophical question. The source material is really clear. This isn't about cultural differences. It's about something else entirely. You see, this whole story is here to introduce us to this core philosophical idea, this tension between what's called yuyong, or useful, and muyong, useless. And it shows us so brilliantly that the exact same thing, the hat, can be both at once. Its value isn't baked into the object itself. It depends completely on the context. So this is the real question we're supposed to be wrestling with. The story of the salesman, that's just the warm-up act. It's setting the stage for a much bigger, much more mind-bending idea about letting go of the very things we think are most valuable. All right, now let's crank this up a few notches. We're going from a nobody merchant to the legendary Emperor Yao. Now, if those hats were useful in one context, Emperor Yao was the very definition of useful in every context. I mean, this guy was the absolute pinnacle of success, power, and effectiveness, the most useful ruler you can imagine. So, picture this. Yao has achieved perfect governance. The whole world is peaceful, it's orderly, he's basically won the game of being an emperor. And what does he do? Something really strange. He just leaves it all behind to go find 4 sages on some distant mountain. But here's the thing. The most important part of this whole journey happens before he even gets there. This is the real climax of the story. As he's getting close near the Fen River, something happens to Yao. He has this experience that is so total, so all-encompassing, that it just completely shatters his reality. Blankly, he lost his world. Just let that sink in for a second. He didn't lose a battle. His throne wasn't taken from him. No, he was just walking. And in that moment, he experienced this complete and total loss of everything he was. So what did he actually lose? It wasn't his empire. He lost his identity as emperor. He lost the weight of everything he'd ever done, all his fame, the entire idea of what it means to rule. In that moment, he was no longer the guy who had ordered the entire world. He had become, in a very real sense, utterly useless. Okay, so let's try to tie these two stories together. On one hand, you have a failed salesman with a cart full of useless hats. On the other hand, you have this legendary emperor who has just lost his entire sense of who he is. What on earth could they have in common? It's the same lesson. Both the salesman's hats and the emperor's whole world became muyong. They became useless. And it's right there, in that moment of profound uselessness, that moment of letting go of a fixed purpose, that a whole new kind of freedom and possibility opens up. For the emperor, losing his world was the one thing he had to do before he could even get close to real wisdom. And that's where this leaves us, with this really powerful and maybe even a little unsettling question. We spend our whole lives trying to accumulate useful things, right? Skills, a reputation, achievements. But maybe, just maybe, the greatest utility, the greatest freedom, isn't found in what we gain, but in what we're brave enough to finally see as useless and just let go.